Hey folks, and welcome to the Grad School Sucks podcast, or welcome back if you're returning to listen to more. My name is Matt Carlson, and I help grad students and academics who are stuck in academia find their way to industry where they can start a new career. I have a cool episode for you today. I'm going to be talking about 3 reasons to get on LinkedIn today. And that doesn't mean 3 reasons just for people who are job hunting right now. That means 3 reasons for anyone who knows that there's a possibility that they might be going industry one day. So we're going to cover that in just a second. Right off the top, I wanted to say apologies for missing last week's episode. My kid just started kindergarten last week, and it was a blur of events and forms to fill out and things to get ready and items to go purchase and a lot of errands to run. So I was pretty busy, but I am back in the saddle and we are back on track for the podcast. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably going to see that there's a little bit of a mess behind me, and that's because with my kid going back to school, I decided it was time to completely tear down everything in my office, reorganize things, and reset up. And I am not all the way there, but I'm almost there. But enough about me. Before I jump in to these 3 reasons to get on LinkedIn today, I wanted to let you know that next month, September, I am offering my first webinar. In this live webinar, I'll be going over my journey where I went from academia to industry. I'll be going over tips and tricks on how to get your first industry job, and I'll also do some live coaching with everyone who shows up, answering your individual questions on how to get your first industry job. Again, this webinar is going to be on Wednesday, September 6th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, Wednesday, September 6th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. To register for this webinar, you can just scroll down to the link in my bio, and registration will cost you $1. $1. I'm calling it my $1 webinar, where you can show up and for an hour hear and interact with me on all things about going industry with your graduate degree. So scroll down to the link in the description of this episode if you'd like to get registered for that today. All right, let us move on to the topic of today's episode, 3 reasons to get on LinkedIn today. There are probably way more reasons to get on LinkedIn than just these 3, but here are the 3 that stand out to me. Number 1 is job openings. Over 90% of jobs that are posted anywhere on the internet are going to be available on LinkedIn in some form or fashion. Many jobs only get posted on LinkedIn, but even the jobs that don't get posted directly onto LinkedIn end up getting sourced by LinkedIn and appear in LinkedIn's job searches. And so if you're looking for what the kind of opportunities are like out there, you're going to want to be on LinkedIn searching through those jobs. Of course, there are other job sites that are somewhat comparable, but LinkedIn is definitely the king when it comes to job postings. And job postings tell you much more than just the fact that there's a job out there that you could apply to. They tell you the kinds of requirements that hiring managers and recruiters are looking for various kinds of roles. They'll even tell you who the recruiter is that you can reach out to talk to about the role, or even the hiring manager. Job postings give you a lot of information that, if you dig into it, can be really valuable for you in your job search. All right, that's the first thing, job postings. Number 2, and I just mentioned this in number 1, but number 2 is recruiters. The main place that job recruiters live is on LinkedIn. And so if you are interested in interfacing with recruiters, if you're interested with getting the attention of recruiters, maybe building some rapport for potential jobs in the future, LinkedIn is the place to be. It's not just to be able to interface with recruiters, but to be able to let recruiters find you. You can actually set in your LinkedIn portfolio that you want recruiters to be able to see that you're interested in a various kind of job. And if you have not had that role before, you may not get much traction. But as soon as you get any kind of role in industry, you're going to get recruiters reaching out to you. And this happened to me almost immediately when I got my first job as a data analyst. And Honestly, I've been hit up by 3 or 4 recruiters just in the last month who are looking to fill data analyst positions and wanted to know if I was interested in applying. And those kind of inbound requests to apply are super valuable because you're going to be much more likely to make it to the next stages of that job search. And while I'm not looking for a job today, I'm very satisfied in the job that I have. It's great to know that there are recruiters out there seeing my portfolio and adding me to their catalog of people to reach out to for future jobs. It's basically like expanding as a previous, and the more and more recruiters that know about you, the more and more possibilities you give yourself for your next role. All right, and finally, number 3. The third reason to be on LinkedIn, and it's probably the most important in the end, is the network. The professional network on LinkedIn is really strong. And no matter what domain you're looking for, as long as it's not academia, the majority of people in that space are going to be active on LinkedIn. And that's where you're going to be able to find people who can give you advice, who can point you to different job titles that you should consider looking at, who may want to do informational interviews with you. You can find a lot of great people on LinkedIn. And honestly, many of the people that I've had on the podcast as guests are people that I found on LinkedIn. And frankly, I probably only needed to find 3 to 5 people first to do those informational interviews with, and then some of them I invited to be on the podcast to share their story. And as soon as I made those first initial connections, more and more people entered into my sphere. And so I'd be doing an informational interview with someone and they'd be like, oh, you should talk to these 2 or 3 people. And it would just snowball from there. And now at this point, I know more people on LinkedIn than I ever thought I would. And I know more people on LinkedIn than people who've been on LinkedIn passively for a decade. And I've only really been active on LinkedIn for a year. And so if you're someone who's looking down the road into the future and you're looking at the possibility of you not getting that academic job or already knowing that you don't want that academic job, and so you're looking towards industry for your job after grad school, I cannot highly enough recommend getting on LinkedIn today. Just jump on LinkedIn. It only takes 5 minutes to fill out some basic information and add a professional looking headshot to your portfolio. And that's really all you need at the beginning before you start applying to jobs. And from there, you can start connecting with people. Maybe start connecting with me. I'll have a link to my LinkedIn bio in the description of this episode as well. And so reach out to me, send me a message. I'll probably not reply immediately, but that's okay. I will get to it eventually. And then just look at who else is out there and start building up a portfolio of people, building up your network that whenever you go to look at jobs, you're going to be leaning on to see what opportunities are out there and what you're eligible for. So that's all I have for today. 3 great reasons to get on LinkedIn. If you are not on LinkedIn, you should sign up today. Be sure to connect with me. And if you want to hear more about my journey from academia to industry, as well as the steps that you need to take to best position yourself to get that first job in industry, I highly recommend you sign up for my $1 webinar. Again, it's going to be that first Wednesday in September. That is September 6th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be on for about an hour. I'll be going over, again, my journey, the steps that I think basically every grad student needs to take to be well positioned to get their first job in industry. And I'm also going to answer whatever questions you all have on the process of going industry. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all next week.